I should have never followed Ton into that house. The moment I stepped in, the air changed. Thick. Stale. The smell of something rotten clung to my nose. A dim bulb flickered, barely lighting the room. And then I saw it. A body, cut open on a metal table. The smell hit me first, then the sound, dripping, like water leaking from a pipe. But it wasn't water. It was blood. And the man standing over the body, holding a scalpel, wasn't a doctor. It was someone I knew. My name is David. I drive a Kiki in Lagos. That's how I met Ton. Ton knew everybody. If you needed work, he had something. If you needed money, he knew where to find it. But if you were smart, you never asked too many questions. That night, he called me. David, I get one small job for you, he said. Good money. Just drive. Drive where? I asked. No worry. Just come. I should have said no. But I was broke, and Lagos is not a place where you say no to money. Ton met me near Boundary Market and led me to a house in Ketu. It looked abandoned, old paint peeling, broken windows. But inside, it was different. Clean. Too clean. Like someone had scrubbed every inch of it. Then I saw the table. And the body. My stomach turned. It was a man. His chest was open, ribs spread apart like someone had cracked them with a tool. Ton didn't flinch. He just walked in like this was normal. Another man stood beside the table. He wore gloves, an apron, and a surgical mask, but I could see his eyes. Cold. Empty. This is the driver, the man asked. Ton nodded. David, meet doctor. Doctor. That's all they called him. I couldn't move. My eyes were stuck on the body. Doctor looked at me. You're late. Ton laughed. No mind them. He be first timer. Doctor pointed at a cooler on the floor. Pick it up. I didn't move. Ton grabbed my shoulder. David, do I picked it up. It was heavy. I could feel the cold from inside. Go drop for the car, doctor said. I walked out like a robot, my brain refusing to work. I put the cooler in the boot of Ton's car and stood there, shaking. Organ harvesting. I had heard of it. Stories in the news. People disappearing. But standing there, I knew this wasn't a story. It was real. Doctor got in the car. I sat in front with Ton. The cooler was in the boot. We drove. Then doctor's phone rang. He answered, listened, then turned to me. Stop at the next junction. My heart pounded. I slowed down. Ton pointed. Over there. A black SUV was parked on the side. Two men stood beside it. I stopped the car. Doctor and Ton got out. One of the men opened the SUV boot. Doctor signaled to me. Bring the cooler. I hesitated. Ton's face changed. David. Now. I grabbed it. My hands were sweating. I walked to the SUV, set the cooler down, and stepped back. One of the men opened it. Inside, wrapped in plastic, was a kidney. A heart. Lungs. Money exchange hands. Thick bundles of cash. Then doctor looked at me. This one, he said, can we trust him? Ton smiled. David no be problem. Doctor stared at me. I hope so. That night, I packed a bag and left Lagos. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't even switch on my phone. I just took the first bus heading west. But I knew they wouldn't just let me go. I ended up in a Bodon. Found a cheap hotel. Just one room with a fan that barely worked. Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Where you dey? I stared at it, my hands shaking. Another message came in. You no suppose run. Now you don't become problem. That night, I heard something. A whisper. David. I sat up. My chest was tight. Then I heard it again. Why you leave me? I turned on the light. Nobody was there. But I knew the voice. It was the man from the table. I left the hotel the next morning. At a small booker, I saw him. Turned. He was across the street, leaning on a parked car. Smiling. My stomach dropped. How did he find me? I threw some money on the table and rushed out through the back. My hands were shaking as I pulled my phone from my pocket and turned it back on. A new message was waiting. You can't run. I took the first bus back to Lagos. I knew the truth now, there was nowhere to run. That night, I called Tond. You win, I said. Let's talk. There was silence. Then he laughed. Smart boy, he said. Come to K2. Back to where it all started. I agreed. But I wasn't going there to work. I was going there to end it. Before I left, I made one last call. To the police. I told them everything. They didn't believe me at first. But when I told them the location, the bodies, the cooler, they listened. They told me to go. Act normal. Let them handle it. I wasn't sure if they would come. But I went anyway. I met Ton outside the house in K2. He smiled, slapped my back like we were old friends. You dey fear before, he said. But you be sharp guy. Now you go make real money. Doctor was inside, preparing another body. I felt sick, but I stayed calm. Then we heard it. Sirens. Shouts. A bang as the door burst open. Police officers stormed in, guns raised. Doctor tried to run, but they tackled him to the ground. Ton stood frozen, his face finally showing fear. I stepped back as they dragged them both away. Ton looked at me, his eyes dark with rage. You set me up. I didn't say anything. I just watched as they took him away. The police shut the place down. The news ran the story. Organ harvesting syndicate busted in Lagos. But even with Ton and Doctor in prison, I never felt safe. Because I knew the truth. They weren't the only ones. There were more out there. And they knew my name. I left Lagos for good. But every time I close my eyes, I still hear the sound. Dripping. Like water leaking from a pipe.